Hi everybody, we are Mike and Brenda Baker and we are so excited to be here with you today. For today, we are going to talk about if you're feeling like an outsider in your blended family, here's how to find your place. So before we get that started though, we have an exciting announcement. We've made this announcement before, but we're going to make it again because, well, it's coming up really soon. Go ahead.
You want me to tell them?
Yeah.
Oh. So our book is finished, but it's not finished. So it's currently in edit. We got to do the cover, and our goal is to have it out next month. So on top of that, we have also rebranded, which some of you probably already know. Now the videos will still be found on Mom's Mixed Family Blender, but we are now branding under Blended Family Momentum. So the book will be Blended Family Momentum, and we will be Blended Family Momentum from here on out. So we are going to start releasing new videos. We are going to try to hit those topics that you are talking most about. We are completely willing to answer questions, so please don't be afraid to ask questions. We will have other channels that we're working on currently. There's already a Facebook page that will remain. We do have a TikTok account. We haven't put any videos there yet, so we'll get there. We do have a Patreon account. We're still working with that. We will be beginning a podcast as well as these videos. So stay tuned.
So in this video, what we are going to talk about is basically we're going to teach you how you can find your place in your blended family. And honestly, this is something that I wish I would have known a long time ago, because for a certain amount of the time when we were first married, it took me some time to try to figure out what I was supposed to do. Like, okay, I went from 1 kid to having 3. Now what? What do I do?
Now, as a side note, welcome to the beginnings of our studio. So we will eventually upgrade as we go, but we wanted to start getting these videos out. So with that, our first point on this topic is obviously you're looking for your place in the family, but how are you going to know what your place is if you can't even accept yourself? You can't expect stepkids to accept you if you don't accept you. Okay, because you're teaching them that you're not acceptable. Now, there are many other layers to that. Mm-hmm. But the first step is teaching your kids, whether you're the husband or the wife, that you are acceptable and that you are acceptable to yourself.
Yeah, and so it's really important for you to really start to discover what your gifts are, what things you're good at. And it's all part of, accepting yourself. Did you say that? I think yes. I might have just said what you said, but it's important because if you don't start there, that's really the foundation of where the issues have come from. In the fact that, okay, you're in this new blended family, but what does that look like? For myself, I don't remember anybody that my parents were friends with that got divorced and were in the same community. I honestly don't remember a lot of their friends that got divorced, to be honest with you. And so, I came into this thinking, oh, it's going to be great, because it was before we got married. And then some of the issues really started to pop up. Obviously, we weren't living together, but at the same time, there were things, we were around each other pretty much all waking hours. And when Mike, he had a third job that he would go to on the weekends. And so I would stay at his house while he was at work on night shift and take care of the boys and that sort of thing. So, but getting back to the point, really it's so important for you to figure out what it is that you do right. Stop thinking about whatever mistakes were made. And that really kind of leads us into point 2.
Yeah, really, it doesn't matter what other people say about you. So stop it.
Yeah.
Okay? I can tell you, now, if you've watched any of our videos, you've heard me say that my dad told me I was dumb, basically, almost all growing up. Okay? And that made an impression, a problem that I still to this day struggle with. Okay? In self-worth. But who are you? Who are you in the household? Did you step in as the step, or are you the bio? If you're the bio, then it's your job to make sure those kids know who the other parent is, because they are the other parent, right? When we get into point 2 here, it's you got to accept the choices you've made. This is part of accepting who you are. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if things aren't going that well and you're thinking to yourself, what have I gotten myself into? That's on you. I don't say that to be mean. I say that because it's a fact. There were signs there before you ever got married. You chose to ignore them because you were enamored. You know, maybe he was super charming. Maybe she was very pretty. Maybe. But it doesn't change the fact that accepting who you are and your place in the relationship, and accepting who you are so that you can teach those stepkids, and your spouse for that matter, who you are and who you expect them to treat you as, meaning boundaries are okay, right? Boundaries are your way of saying, this is what's acceptable to me, and in return asking what is acceptable to you. But the choices you've made, I can't tell you how many couples we've talked to are like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this.
Yep.
When in some cases we knew them before they got married, and it's like you absolutely had all the information there to know that it was going to be that way.
Yeah, and really, you need to forgive yourself. Whether you caused your divorce, your previous divorce, or you fed into it, or, you know, whatever the case may be, it's time to give yourself some grace and forgive yourself for whatever mistakes you made in the past, and just work hard on replacing negative qualities with good ones, right? You know, over the years, like, I was an only child, so I have to be honest and say there were a lot of things that I did in our early marriage that were just retarded. I mean, you know, I look back, or I think back about things that I did and said then, and it's like, why did I actually think that?
Yeah.
I just didn't know. Okay. And so I thought this whole marriage was going to be perfect because he wasn't my ex. What I didn't take into account is that I was the same person in some ways. And that wasn't necessarily positive in some ways. So
yeah, if you find yourself in a relationship and you're having exactly the same problems, you've heard me say this before too, keep in mind there's only one consistency there, and that's you.
yeah.
So it may very well be that part of the problem in the last relationship, if you're having the exact same problem now, was a good chunk of you and how you're reacting. Now, I'm not laying blame. All right. This video is about finding your place. This relationship is not the last relationship, so quit comparing it to it. Quit thinking, well, this guy's so much better than my last because of... Stop it. Yeah. This is a completely separate relationship, completely separate dynamic. Now, there are some things in families that are the same, whether they're blended families or families. There are some rules, I guess you could say, that are always going to be the same. All right. But then with blended families, there are some extra rules that don't necessarily apply to other families, like forgiving yourself, like teaching your kids what being acceptable is. And coming into our third, that would be the importance of actual communication. So when I say actual communication, anybody who's ever been married knows that men and women communicate very differently.
Yep. Yeah. And so, you know, we women, we just want to talk and talk and talk and talk some more. And then if he looks like he's not actually caring or interested, then we get ourselves all up in a, you know, we get ourselves in a place where it's negative. And so, you know, actual communication can look a lot of different ways. And I would say, and Mike really kind of brought this up before, but you're not talking to another woman. Okay. If it's your husband that you're trying to communicate with, you're not talking to another woman. So you do have to talk in a different way. And so now I think we need a segment into what that would look like. So can we give some examples?
Yeah. I mean, you know, men also need to remember that they're not talking to another man. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to a guy, keep it simple. Simple, 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 simple. For one, if you expect him to just know, you are going to be expecting all day. He has no clue. All right. Whether you think he should or not, completely irrelevant.
Yep.
All right. Whether you think it's ridiculous or not, completely irrelevant. The problem that I've seen recently is I see a tremendous amount of women now saying that because men don't just know, therefore they're immature, and therefore they are uncaring, and they're just all of these things that are not positive. That is not true.
Yep.
That is simply not what we bring to the table.
Okay, another thing that I have seen, and this is as recent as yesterday, I've seen a few people say that their husband is their adult child. Ladies, please don't. That is not going to help your marriage, because number one, whoever you're talking to and saying that about your husband will have a lot less respect for you and for your husband, even though he didn't actually do anything wrong. If you have that kind of attitude about your husband, it's time to have some conversations. And ladies, you do, and I've been guilty of this many times. Mike has had to remind me probably a couple thousand times in 29 years that I do have to tell him more than one time. Now, am I demanding things? No, but if I ask him to do something for me, I actually have to ask him again, because remember, men are, very focused on the one thing that they're doing at the time. And so, if they're headed off to work and you ask them, hey, could you take the garbage can to the corner? It might not get done because they were focused on getting themselves to work on time.
Okay, now let me expound on that, because I know there's a lot of women out there that are probably like, well, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can remember, he can remember. Stop it. That is comparison again, all right? My wife is not me, and I am not my wife. And we communicate very differently. And after almost 30 years together, we have figured out how to communicate to each other in a manner that gets through. I have a list on my phone, a running list of things that I know need to be done. And so what I have to do is I remember 2 things in a day. Add it to the list, look at my list. Add it to the list, look at my list. Why do I do that? Because I get up at 3 a.m. and I start my day, and I don't sit down to see my wife again until about 8:30 that night, because I have so many things to do, so many things going on. So it is not my lack of caring. It's not my lack of attention. It is the fact that I have a role here, and I take that role very seriously. And I put 110% of myself into serving God and to making sure my wife is taken care of. And if I miss taking the garbage out, I'm sorry, but I've got a million other things that I probably got done in that period of time too. It has nothing to do with intelligence, ignorance, or not caring. So keep that in mind. That's why I say men are singular and simple. If you say something in passing, it just passed right by, all right? So if it were a woman, she'd be like, well, are you saying this?
Yeah.
But you tell a dude and he's like, did you say something? Not because we don't care, but because we're working on the next thing already.
So I'll do things like I'll ask Mike, would you like me to write this down? And actually, it's become such a thing that sometimes he'll ask me, because there have been many times he's asked me to do something and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so he'll ask me, do you want me to write this down for you? And where would you want me to put this? Because I tend to be a very focused, passionate person. And so I have a hard time remembering things sometimes too. And it's not a lack of me not wanting to do it or, do it when he wants it done. I don't know. I just don't remember. Yeah. So give your spouse grace, because frankly, we all need some grace. We need to give ourselves grace, but we also need to give our spouse grace. So make sure, and that wasn't even one of our points, but I really feel that that is something that we could all do better within our marriage to make our families better, is to give each other grace. Because Mike has a rough week, Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, he's trying to get everything else done, which is really why we haven't gotten a lot of these videos done. But we've got a plan now, so we're doing it. But yeah.
So with that, okay, so just to give you an idea, the joke around the house, I tell her all the time, if you need something from me that's more than 2 words, please write it down. Because I want to remember it, but I know if she's got to write it down so I can get it on my list, because what do? I put it on the list and I check the list.
Yeah.
So, but with that, let me caveat right quick here into our last point. Now, we're still on the importance of actual communication. Mm. You need to remember, you've heard us say this too before, there are 2 offices in the house, mom and dad. Whether you are the actual bio mom or the actual bio dad is completely irrelevant. And let me talk to you guys who like to point out that the other is not the bio. Guys or women, you are wrong. Knock it off. You have a family. A family has a mom, a dad, and children. Actually, an actual family, if you want to get scriptural, is mom and dad, and the children are subject to mom and dad's relationship. I'm not saying your kids got to call you mom, or the stepkids got to call you mom. I'm not saying the stepkids got to call you dad, but you treat that woman or that man like they are the other parent, because this is your house. You set the rules. Doesn't matter what's happening somewhere else. And that is huge in the importance of actual communication, because you are teaching your kids otherwise that they don't have to listen to them because you don't listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And we always suggest that if you have a good relationship with the other household, that you encourage this in their house too. Because you know what? It's only going to help the kids.
Encourage, not tell.
Yeah.
Big difference.
That's why I said that.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, any other points that we want to bring up with that? Okay. So with that said, we thank you so much for being here today. We thank you for really just coming along with us, even though it's been some time since we've made our last video. We really appreciate you, and we love your comments. You know, some of the negative ones could, you know, just not be there. But if you have other questions, if you have things that we haven't yet covered, please leave them down below in the comments. I read all of them. Mike doesn't always, unless they're directed toward him. But we always I try to make sure that I'm replying right away and, you know, taking into account what's being asked. And so just go ahead and follow us. You know, if you like our content and you want to hear more, we've got a lot of videos in our YouTube channel. But yes, with that said, we'll see you again next time. Bye.